with that classic feeling. Politics and pop and all in between. Double D podcast, living the dream. Life's a story, we're telling it all.
All right, happy Hump Day, Wednesday, September 18th. Welcome to episode number 8 of the Double D podcast. Dustin and David here, presented by FidusFi. Dustin, a lot of good stuff to get to today. Some scary items and whatnot, but also some fun sports items as well. So a good mixture.
Absolutely. 8 is my lucky number. Today we're going to be talking about, obviously a second assassination attempt on the former president, Donald Trump, as well as any college football coaches that might be on the assassination as well.
Good mixture of topics.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Fed funds rate and some other things today as well. So, Dave, how do you want to get rolling here this morning?
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit offline about this unfortunate second assassination attempt, which is just unbelievable that this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with, a month and a half out from the election. I mean, certainly thankful that he's okay and he's safe and the suspect has been apprehended, but just scary that these are the times we live in.
Yeah, and again, we have local law enforcement kind of making the break in the case here, not the Secret Service who's protecting the former president. You've got local law enforcement. In this case, this is Martin County, where I believe this section of Trump's golf course would be Palm Beach County.
Correct.
So that's maybe they were hired private for additional security here, or maybe I'm misunderstanding something. But either way, this is not the Secret Service making another stop here.
Right, which you think that would be like their obvious territory, be Secret Service here, not the Martin County, the neighboring county sheriff that uncovers this. So it's just some oddities already.
Yeah, you had a potential Democrat nominee, RFK, with a lot of threats. Obviously, from his family, you think we could have protected him with the Secret Service. Well, was requested and denied coverage from the Secret Service on multiple occasions, or like expanded coverage. Mm-hmm. For all the things we spend money on as a country, especially for presidents who historically all presidents typically donate their salary back. Mm-hmm. Can we please use some of that money to protect them?
I think that would be an easy thing we should all agree on. Yeah.
And, you're going to have like any other country, especially look at dictator countries. Like these guys are under extreme surveillance, extreme protection. Mm-hmm. This crap would never happen to Kim Jong-un or Putin or any dictator.
Never, not even close.
And really any other world leader. I don't think any other world leader is walking around as scared in the free world, at least, as Donald Trump is.
I totally agree with you.
I'm not saying he's scared. He's obviously handling.
But
things.
It's just something he shouldn't even have to be extra thinking about. And now two attempts.
I want to call up on the screen here and just show the video of him shaking hands with Martin County officers, real quick. But the one would be the captain or the chief here in the middle. Points out that the person who spotted the shooter is this one young officer on the far left of the video here. So Trump invited them back to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, that's pretty good. I didn't think you'd him out.
But hug that guy. Dap that guy up, give him a hug. He gets invited back for sure.
Yeah, free membership.
That's incredible. I do too. I want to kind of call up a video of Tucker Carlson talking about the shooter here as well. I'm not one to give much attention to somebody who does something like really negative. The Aurora shooter,
mm-hmm.
the shooter from the nightclub here in Orlando. Right. That was devastating, and the media gives too much attention to the just
correct
horrible people.
Yeah.
but in today's day and age, we have to really know what we're getting from the media, how true it is, how accurate it is. And it's harder than ever to know what's true. I mean, on all sides, you have stuff that's propaganda, you have stuff that's fake. It's difficult. You find yourself, searching around on X or
the
on
non-traditional media sources
like
to get the actual media.
I wanted to get that video called up of him shaking hands with everybody at Mar-a-Lago. So I thought I would search Martin County at Mar-a-Lago, shaking hands with Trump. 6 or 7 different ways on YouTube. I couldn't find it. The very first result I found on TikTok took 2 seconds, the Chinese media. So there's an example here, right? It's just not easy to find anything that's...
I guess we can, in this instance, thank the Chinese for giving us our correct media. So.
All right, well, I'm going to put this here. We can call this one up on Tucker Carlson. We'll go for like maybe 2 minutes here and talk about, kind of what he says about the shooter, which is interesting.
And every single thing is a lie, either directly or it's a lie much more prevalent and much more sinister. It's a lie by omission. They're just not telling you the facts. And without belaboring the point, I'm using this as just one example among a countless number of examples where reality is completely distorted and the average person has not only no idea, but no way of knowing what the truth is. So the guy who is now in custody for attempted murder against the Republican nominee, the former U.S. President, Donald Trump, that guy.
This is really what I want to cue in on here. This is really interesting what he's alleging here, right here.
Has been interviewed countless times by every big media outlet in the United States. He's got, a criminal record the length of your arm, 20 charges, including possession of weapons of mass destruction. The New York Times didn't bother learn any of that before they held him up as a freedom fighter in Ukraine, where he was living. And then the piece describes the contact he's had with members of Congress and their staffs and other U.S. government agencies. You're like, wait a second, that's the same guy who brought a rifle with a scope to a golf course in South Florida to murder Donald Trump, and he's had all these contacts with U.S. government agencies? Like, I don't know what that's about, but I think it's time to find out. No.
So, what he said was that, this guy has a rap sheet, a long list, right? I've seen another video where they pull up, it's actually Meet Kevin. We're going to look at one of his videos in a second. We talk about Fed fund rates. And definitely a great content producer on YouTube. If you don't, like and subscribe to ours, you should check out his content as well. Really good daily news coverage, a lot of financial topics, real estate topics as well. Not a promotion for him or anything, but just mentioning that's where I heard of that initially on the on his background, and then I saw this video later searching for the same thing on the background. In this day and age, little old FidusFi, tiny lending company that we have, we know in a few seconds when we run background reports on our clients, a good idea of their character. We can see every speeding ticket and every, criminal record, if they have anything, judgments, liens, all kinds of stuff like that pops up on background reports. And, the media and the government certainly have access to better and faster and more in-depth searches. And they're putting people on the news that have, more than questionable backgrounds. So if this guy was on the news repeatedly in videos, I think there's a video online saying he was in a BlackRock commercial, but really I think it was some Ukraine commercial. It wasn't necessarily BlackRock. But, if they aren't fact checking those things, if they aren't, let's not even use fact checking. If they aren't at least, looking into the people that they're letting be promoted to millions of people online and, in our homes, then what diligence is being done on anybody that's giving us information?
Yeah, I think that's what's kind of scary is it's is there any diligence and is it propagandized, biased? Who's doing it? Why would they omit things or just overlook things? So that definitely calls into question who's doing the omitting and why.
Yeah, and so this guy, there's a charge on his background that says possession of weapons of mass destruction. How is this guy walking around?
Can't imagine.
How are we not tracking that dude with all the technology and all the stuff we have? And I don't know if I'm just because I watched a couple of Jason Bourne movies, if I think that we're much more capable than we really are. But seems like letting this guy that close to the president is.
Yeah, totally. I think Tucker's onto something here with it. certainly got the guy's interesting connections, and it's amazing that he was able to get that close to the president.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, we segue a little bit into college football here, Dave.
Yeah, let's do a little bit little lighthearted.
We'll get back to Trump. We gotta
yeah,
talk,
we'll
we
get
gotta
back.
talk crypto.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're 3 weeks in, and so what happens after the couple weeks is usually the firing season carousel starts to ramp up, and so as a Gator myself, I think our coach is probably exhibit number one of that on that list. But are there any others you can think of or that might jump out at you as potential new coaches at other programs, maybe?
Well, if you're 0-3 or 1-2, you got to look at Florida State, another Florida team. You're certainly not. You're not safe in that role. If you're at a major program, and like not everybody can win, right? Like that's statistically how this works, right? But if you're at a major program, you're going to be potentially in trouble if you're not at least contending for the playoffs, which there's only 12 spots.
Yeah, I think that in the business of college football, right? We always know it's been a business, but now it's out in the open as far as the NIL and the paying the players and transfer portals and all this television money. Now it's almost like even more so the expectations are higher. I mean, coaches are getting $8-10 million. You're expected to win every year. And like you said, only one team actually wins and only 12 get into the playoff. But everyone expects to get there because of the resources that are being, put forth for football. And obviously the importance of football and the money that it makes for the rest of the university itself. And so it's interesting that, you don't, to build a program, you need to give that coach some time. However, there isn't the same amount of time there used to be because there's big money at stake.
6 months? You need 6 months?
Yeah, maybe a year. Maybe a year. No, and so I think that the worry as a Gator fan is you look at other schools like Nebraska's and Tennessee's that have had a quick trigger on firing coaches, but unfortunately for them, they've been doing this 5 or 6 coaches now. So they kind of go into the desert for 20 years because they maybe fired too fast. It's like maybe a guy needs a little bit more time. Look at Clemson and Dabo Swinney. First couple of years, he wasn't that successful up to what they expected, but then they had tons of success at years 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's kind of one of those. Every situation's different, but you don't want to give too long of time, but also you don't want to have too short of a leash either. And so I don't know. It's definitely a tough thing. I'm glad I'm not making that decision. But of course, as a fan, fans always want the next thing. The grass is always greener. Just like the backup quarterback is always the most popular guy because no one knows what he's done or hasn't done yet. And so makes for good talking points. But in this big business where coaches are making tons and tons and tons of money, the leash is a lot shorter.
Yeah, so I saw like in a group chat that I'm in, and I'm not the best texter ever here, but they were talking about, like boosters, and like alumni putting money together for, the buyouts to fire coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And, if I can find it here, we're talking about like a buyout of like $25+ million, 26 to cover Billy Napier.
Mm-hmm.
But like, my buddy posted in the chat, he was like, think of the money that could give to students for full rides to, maybe even 1,000 students, could maybe solve like local homelessness temporarily, could have, major implications to the local community. We could do something for the students. But no, we're just going to get a new football coach.
No, and I agree. I think it's, especially as, the cost of everything has gone up and a lot of people are struggling and whatnot. It's even more of like a, almost spit in your face. Like, so that we're going to pay this guy $26 million to go hire another guy with a new buyout, probably even larger than that, with another $10 million a year contract.
Oh, they never
to
went
win
down.
to win some football games, and so, yeah, it is kind of, when you start, comparing what that money can be used for, it kind of makes you think like, man, this is crazy. This is even a thing.
Yeah.
There's so much better use they could use the money. But I guess at the very least, even though it's been a rough 3 weeks for me personally, as far as on the football side, to watch it as a fan, I guess it's a couple hours you can get away from, normal your own life, the pros and cons and stresses of that, and kind of get away from it. Unfortunately, when your team is not doing well, though, it's just like, maybe I'll go back to that and not watch the team anymore.
Yeah.
And then people get apathetic. And so I think that's where, if you're looking, from the revenue that football generates, if people are apathetic, they're not spending money, they're not going to the games, they're not, paying those booster fees, that trickles down to the rest of the athletic program. So it is kind of like a difficult fine line for people that are making those decisions regarding the coaches what to do.
Yeah. And we were talking too about like how, if you're the LSU coach, you're never safe. So,
Right.
Good luck, Brian Kelly. But I mean, Coach O had a national championship, and
Right. Yeah.
like they don't care.
Yeah. I mean,
You gotta get one every year.
like I said, they look at FSU. They were arguably should have been in the playoff. Last year, and now they've had a rough start of the year. Sure, but
Hard to make that
people
argument
are already trying to
after
fire
the
the
game
guy.
they played, but I was upset about them not getting in last year.
Sure. Yeah.
So I feel like
agree.
that's hard to segue into college football when we're talking about something so serious and so ridiculous and so upsetting in the world of a former president having in 2 months assassination attempts. But this is the season that we're in here, and we're talking about we're gonna keep it open on the podcast. We're gonna talk about a lot of things, and go
Keep it
over a lot
open.
of stuff. But want our viewers to know, obviously, that's nowhere near
No.
important compared to.
Well, I think if anything, like you said, it kind of puts things in perspective. Like you're saying with the buyouts, it puts in perspective. Like, it's just college football. Like, it is what it is. It's fine. It's whatever. It's not a big deal. The scheme of things, there's important things going on in the world.
Yeah, it's wild too. And speaking of other Trump news here, right before the election, interesting to me that they're the family is launching with partners a new cryptocurrency, World Liberty, and I'll pull it up here on X. This is their X page here. Says they're not live yet. This is a DeFi token that they're launching, and we'll have a little video here that was on CNBC. But I mean,
In all his free
traditionally,
time, I guess.
presidents aren't really involved in private
now with
business,
more. Good morning.
And that's been something that a lot of Trump supporters have been
Sure.
not a lot of people that are against opponents of Trump are.
Certainly, the timing is also odd, right? It's 6 weeks out from the election, and you're
Wow, 6
announcing,
weeks already. Wow, that's close.
so.
But what I
Yeah,
mean,
just the timing of it is odd too. In addition to, usually, like you said, they're not presidents aren't kind of in this position.
yeah, I guess you have a lot of presidents usually take office and then all of a sudden have much higher net worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we've seen that with Trump. I think you have to go back to maybe Carter before you had another president that had that
Right.
drop in net worth. But having private business and being in politics is a conflict
Sure.
no matter what your situation is. It's certainly a conflict on both sides when you've got Nancy Pelosi being one of the most successful traders beating Wall Street every year. But,
Magic.
I think that, I think that there should be a separation of,
100%.
the federal government and private business. But this is big news. So let's check this out for a little bit and
Hey, good
Talk
morning,
about it here,
Joe.
Dave.
So last night, World Liberty Financial had a big announcement, still isn't live, and we don't yet have an activation date. But we did find out who's on the exec team for the Trump crypto enterprise, some details of the official token launch, and roughly what the platform aims to do. Now, in terms of the org chart, Donald Trump, his sons, his close friend Steve Witkoff, and Steve's two sons are all founding members. They're describing World Liberty Financial as a decentralized crypto banking platform where users will be able to borrow, lend, and earn interest on cryptocurrencies. But really, the headline of Monday's more than 2-hour live stream is that, yes, the Trump family is helping to launch a token.
So yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, I think he's flipped from anti-Bitcoin, maybe saying at one point it was a scam, to very pro crypto recently, as you've seen him in some speeches on stage. Talking about that being the future of the U.S. For blockchain and for cryptocurrency to continue the U.S. as a leading power in the world. So interesting that the Trump family has
Gone all in on this.
Yeah.
Seems like, yeah. It is interesting that, like I said, the change, and I guess maybe realizing that crypto is future.
Yeah, and I really don't understand like what his project's going to do, and I don't think like I've watched about 4 videos about the video they posted. I'll watch the full one, but it's like 2 hours long, and I got to spend some time on that. But I guess they go for a long time, but not really explaining what the project's doing.
Hopefully, we get some additional details because I agree it's a little bit ambiguous.
I guess that's part of crypto is you don't really have to do anything. You just have to create something that a lot of people put money into, and it goes up. And
that's true.
I did want to pull up a video I mentioned earlier from Meet Kevin. So just like predictions on like what will happen. I believe today is the meeting this afternoon.
Today at 2:30, they're supposed to have a media conference to explain.
So this will be like what happens with the federal funds rate. And there's a misconception, speaking from as a mortgage lender, to our audience here, that like there's an exact correlation between the federal funds rate and mortgage rates. So it may be the case if we see 25, 50 basis point drop today, that mortgage rates don't move because they've already sort of predicted and priced this in. It may be the case that mortgage rates do move. They don't necessarily correlate 1-to-1, at least, with federal funds rates. There's a lot of other like factors in the market to determine what ultimately either the federal government or bond investors are going to demand for yield in mortgages. So other factors can include what other investment opportunities they have, to earn stable fixed income, and really how well things are performing in the economy. If there's a lot of commercial default, then they can trade and buy other loans at discounts for higher yields ultimately, and they're not going to buy loans at 5% interest, even if the federal funds rate moves down 100 basis points. You could actually see an increase in mortgage rates if there's a lot of default in the market, because now there's discount buying opportunities. It's not as simple as that. It's not as
a direct correlation.
It's not as simple as it's 1-to-1 ratio. So rates go down 50 basis points today. 6% rates are not immediately 5.5.
Yeah.
But we'll see what Meet Kevin says, and we'll see how accurate he is on this prediction here.
So what are my final predictions for what the Federal Reserve is going to do tomorrow? These are my final thoughts, so we're gonna number them out. Number 1, I think we get a 50. I'm basing that on Dudley and former Fed folks, and of course, Nick T. Number 2, I think we're going to get a Powell who acknowledges, and you might disagree with this, but who acknowledges that no, we're not in a recession right now, but data has weakened enough, we just don't want it to weaken more. And that's why we're going 50, because things are good, things are strong, but we don't want to become complacent. That's prediction number 2. Prediction number 3 is that barring any changes in the data coming up forward, the summary of economic projections now going forward is probably going to forecast that while we may start with a 50, we're going to go down to 25s. We might take that process slowly while we're data dependent.
Yeah, so Kevin's saying we're going to see 50 basis point drop today. I think a lot of analysts and smarter people than myself expect a rate cut. But like on the most simple level of things, Dave, like if we don't see some lower rates, we have over $1 trillion worth of commercial loans matured and needing to refinance. Those are held on bank balance sheets, federal balance sheets. And if those don't renew, we have a lot of foreclosures, and there's going to be a lot more reserves, a lot more liquidity needed by the banks to support those. And if those can just refinance and we can kick the can a little further, I think that'll be good. And you have the national debt costing American taxpayers more than our military spending today. So the things I always talk about are, if we are incentivized to have a lower rate environment, obviously we have to control inflation. But if we don't have a lower rate cut, we're spending too much of our federal budget on just interest. And at some point, there's a good video of Elon Musk. If we're not going to spend the whole podcast, you're just pulling up videos the whole time. But we can post it in the comments. It's a really good video of Elon Musk talking about if we're adding $1 trillion every 9 months or sooner, eventually we're going to be adding $1 trillion every month. Eventually, we're going to have $100 trillion in debt. And eventually, 100% of our budget is really just going to go toward the interest.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, and it has to be solved. You cannot, on the most basic thing. We cannot do this forever.
No, absolutely. I think what Elon is saying is spot on. It's a snowball effect. So it'll only get worse and only get more frequent. That, instead of $1 trillion every year or every 9 months, it'll be every month. Yeah, I mean, I think with the commercial, we've talked about this extensively offline. What's going to happen with the commercial market is certainly going to have a trickle down effect on a lot of other things too. And so it's certainly the lowering of the rates will be a good start, I think, for consumer confidence, hopefully in the stock market and things like that. But like you said, it's not a direct correlation, and it is to be seen. Future, obviously, what's going to happen with the commercial loans? Because there's, we said, over $1 trillion just sitting there, and so it's definitely something to be worried about, concerned about for sure.
Yeah, and that's one aspect, and there's maybe two other equally weighted size pools of money that are concerning, right? We have unsecured loans over $1 trillion. We have student loans over $1 trillion. We have auto loans. And auto loans are so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you get a used car or a used boat and, you're paying a 9% interest rate today on that loan with great credit, that's really killing the industry right now. So I think that, if we don't see some rate cuts, eventually some industries are going to suffer pretty hard.
For sure. I don't see how they wouldn't. Yeah. That's interesting times.
Brings you back to the crypto conversation too, because if eventually the dollar is worth less and less and less because we're going to create more of it, right? So the actual definition of inflation is the original definition before we changed it to fit kind of the narrative of we're just going to, print QE ourselves, forever into American dominance, is that if you inflate or increase the monetary supply, that's inflating the monetary supply. It has nothing to do with prices rising.
Mm-hmm.
Prices rising is an effect of the monetary supply. There's more dollars in the market, right? So during Obama, there's like $8 trillion more in debt. During Trump, there was like 8 or 9 even more debt, $1 trillion more. Everything goes up because of those decisions, right? If we circulate that much more money into the economy, it's not just the stimulus. People blame it on the COVID stimulus. A lot of the inflation we're seeing today is, 7 years of us printing money ago. We may be seeing inflation for years and years and years forward from the increase of how much money is in supply in the market.
You're right. People think it's like, the prices went up. That's what inflation means. Not actually what it means.
But
that's the result of it.
That's how we define it today.
Right.
We define it as, adjusted a whole bunch of different goods that are, kind of like not randomly decided upon. And then, we kind of take an average of those things and then make a prediction of how much, the future is going to rise and what the current difference is from last year over year, month over month. And, really you need to look at like the more simple indices, like the Big Mac index. Like how much does a Big Mac cost in your town over time? And that's inflation. Well,
you look at just like we talk about this too, just real estate, the market, the residential market, right? You look at a house that was, say, $1 million. Now it's 2 or 3. So yes, it's worth more, but everything else costs, it has risen with it. So it's like, are you actually wealthier?
Do you have more purchasing power
money?
if you
Probably
sold that
not.
asset?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Then you're thinking, well, okay, well, I paid $1 million for this. Now what do I get for $1 million? And you're like, well, I'll just stay put. Part of our inventory issue right now, as far as in the nation. But yeah, I think you're right. When you pick a couple simple items that everyone understands what they are and knows what the value always typically has been of the price, pre 2 or 3 years ago, and then now it's just an easy, quick, just simple math to say, oh wow, that's a lot of inflation that's happened that's caused the increase in prices.
Yeah, but
utilities and things like that. But
it's also shrinkflation, right? So like you have, goods that are just getting smaller and in lower quantities.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many packs of bacon at the supermarket are an actual pound today?
Right.
How many packs of cheese are an actual pound? Now they're 8 ounces. Now they're 10 ounces. Now they're 12 ounces.
And I think a lot of
the size is shrinking. The cost is staying the same.
Sure.
That's also a price increase. But again, inflation is not the price increasing. It's the growth of money in the market. And we really stopped tracking money in the same ways we used to. The St. Louis Fed still tracks some monetary supply, but not all of it. Like there's that much money in circulation. There's this much money in derivatives. There's so much capital in the market that it's not even easy to understand how many dollars are even out there.
Right.
And that's how crazy it is. That's how you get to the wheelbarrow scenario where you're, in Germany carrying a wheelbarrow to go buy a bucket
Right.
of a thing of bread,
Yeah.
and that's how, we have a lot of clients here that are Venezuelan, and talking about sending a wire transfer to buy a cup of coffee. That's how you get to hyperinflation is letting things get out of control.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so much talk and importance around laws for cryptocurrencies. I don't know if a presidential nominee should have his own coin, and be involved in that, but I do know that I personally believe that like there are better ways to control money outside of the government and to have the people control money. And I like that about crypto.
I agree. I think when you think about the big picture, yeah, it makes it, well, maybe we should have some crypto as part of in our portfolio as well, because like I said, the monetary supply in the banks and interest rates is terrifying, to be honest with you. Almost
Why
don't have
would we?
that.
Why would we trust it?
Right.
Like,
I think also you mentioned shrinkflation, but also piggybacking on that too is the quality of most items is not what it used to be as well. So you're paying more for a, lack of better terms, crappier item that's also smaller than what you paid before.
dude, there's some great videos now on like Whole Foods, like and you look at the actual ingredients
Like the
list.
bioengineering.
They're no longer whole foods.
Right.
There's just a bunch of junk in all the products that are there now. So like the same price or the price went up slightly, but now it has a bunch of crap and fillers in it. It's not really like,
Not even food half the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of good topics to think about. So we could talk about all these. Each one could be their own podcast. So
a lot more coming in here. The Double D's podcast, episode 8, Dave. I think that's going to be nearly a wrap for us. We appreciate you guys for listening in. I know we're bouncing to a couple topics today, but looking forward to having episode 9 here on Monday. And
please like us and subscribe and put any comments. We'd love to read.
All righty.
Under the lights, endless chatter into the night.